All right, guys, back with another party time talk. Today we'll be discussing the topic of mental health. And so mental health is something that has a lot of awareness has been raised about it here recently, probably over the last, 10, 15 years, maybe less than that, you think?
Yeah, I think it's grown over the last 10, 15 years, but it has really exploded over the last, really I'd say it's grown over the last 5 years, and
Would you say especially post-pandemic?
well, within and now semi-post-pandemic, even though there's, I guess, a new strain of, I don't know. Anyway, yes, this and the transition out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a much bigger focus on it now than there ever has been before.
Yeah. Yep. And so it's known now that mental health is important and that a lot of people struggle with mental health.
Absolutely.
Right. And we see a lot of that here in the clinic.
Yeah.
We see a lot of it in our high school aged clients, college age clients, and general population clients. I mean, everyone struggles with it. And so with that struggle of mental health, what are some of the first steps someone should look into or think about doing if they think they're struggling with mental
health? Step one is talk to somebody. And it's interesting that today is when we talk about this, because I don't know what platform it was on, but I was scrolling through and there was this analogy of, okay, if somebody bumps into you and you spill the coffee, like the coffee that's in your hand, you spill the coffee, it's not the coffee's fault that you get burned, because it could have been tea, it could have been water, it could have been whatever. It's whatever you're holding in that cup once you're pushed over the edge that's going to spill out. So if you are consumed with all sorts of bad, negative energy, bad mental health, anxiety, stress, all the things, at some point, that is what's going to spill out. Likewise, if you have the good rest, recovery, happiness, joy, positivity, then when everything gets pushed to the edge, then that's probably more likely that what's going to spill out. And so it's interesting that that's what this is what we're talking about today. And Aaron just said surprise party time talk today. I had no idea what we were talking about, which I like to have a little bit of prep, but it's fine. It's not like it brings me stress or anxiety. No. But so step one is just acknowledge that there's something going on and find somebody to talk to. And I think that, when we look at, I think nationwide, the last time I looked, and I haven't looked in a while, but in particular, suicide rates for men are like 6 to 6.5 times higher than that of women. And I think that is due in large because women are more apt to talk about what's going on, talk about feelings, talk about stressors and everything else. And there's this facade that's always been there for men of be tougher, be stronger, you just have to be better.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Suck it up.
Yeah.
And all sorts of derogatory descriptions thereof, used by coaches, trainers, everything else, particularly with athletes, that just gets ingrained all the way down when they're young. Even in class, I teach a class at a local university today, and we're going through a final exam process, and I showed a video of an injury occurring. It was to Pee Wee football players, and the class was told, "All right, what do you do in this scenario after this hit?" And you can hear one of the dad coaches in the background saying, "Get up, don't be I'll use the word sissy about it, wimp." You can infer what was actually said. This kid's probably 10, and these two boys went crown of the helmet to crown of the helmet, and one just went backwards.
Yeah.
And was seeing Tweety Bird flying around his head. I mean, very clearly had a concussion. And this dad coach is standing over him like, "Get up." And so that type of, obviously that kid was injured, but then everybody else around, all the other kids looking around are like, "Oh, dang, well, if I have something happen or I don't feel quite right, I just need to be better. I just need to suck it up." And a lot of times we see these guys come in with a little bit of ache and pain or injury that has gone on so long that it becomes
Bigger
mentally, emotionally so debilitating that they can't hardly push through.
Yeah.
And that's probably why we get so much eye sweat in here.
Mm-hmm.
Because at some point all that has to come spilling out.
Right. Yeah, and it's clear in our experience, and I'm sure it's clear in other people's experience, that it's clearly an issue, and you touched on a little bit of why maybe some of those things are an issue. But back to when you said one of the best things a person can do about their mental health is talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Who should be some of the people they would talk to? Like, who would those people be typically?
Well, certainly there's, ideally you've got for the high school, college folks, you've got a mentor, coach, parent, maybe it's a pastor at church, youth pastor, somebody who is older, theoretically wiser. Maybe it's a friend, an upperclassman, teammate, whoever, somebody that you can just say, "Hey, I need to talk to you about it." And even if that person's not necessarily equipped to deal with it, hopefully that listening ear can then take that information and help you get the help you need if you need more than just a listening ear. And I hear that all the time. I know you do too, where somebody will come in and say, "Hey, so-and-so told me this. I think they need more help." Okay, cool. Let's help facilitate that more help.
Yeah.
And, there's a slew of mental health professionals out there who certainly specialize in that. We are not mental health professionals. We don't pretend to be. We don't play them on TV.
We can recognize it, though.
But we can recognize it and provide a lot of that mental health first aid to get them at least to a stabilized point and restored to where they are safe, and then on to either referral or recovery.
Yeah. What would be some qualities in a person that you share that stuff to? What would be the qualities you would want in that person? Like someone who's just willing to listen, someone who's willing to stick up for you. Like what are the qualities we should be showing with the people who express their mental health concerns with us?
I would say somebody who is trustworthy, empathetic, somebody who knows how to listen to understand and not listen necessarily to respond.
Yeah.
Which is such a big thing that is lost on so many people. Somebody who can go to bat for you if you need it. So somebody who has that. I don't want to say necessarily authoritarian opportunity, but somebody who, if you need somebody to go kick a door down on your behalf, they can go kick a proverbial door down on your behalf.
Yeah.
And somebody who you know is going to stick out the process with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times it's a long process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something that's usually fixed or taken care of quickly. And it's also something that's probably rarely 100% of the time fixed.
No.
It's kind of like a ongoing thing, and there can be seasons of where it's better than it is at other times. But I mean, you got ebbs and flows, ups and downs, in season, out of season, all that good stuff. So let's say I'm a patient here, and I come into the clinic, and I'm like, man, Brett, I've been struggling with baseball lately. Like, I'm hitting horribly, can't hit the ball worth a crap. I've made several errors the last couple games. I feel like crap. I feel like I'm worthless. I'm no help to the team. And sometimes I feel so worthless that I just don't want to go to practice, or I don't want to be around my friends. I don't want to go to school. What would be some of the things you'd want to listen to about my story or tell me about my story, you think?
Whatever it is that you need to say, there's always something deeper, and that's, I mean, I don't know why you bring up that exact example other than the fact that that's a conversation. I mean, that exact conversation.
Yeah, I was like, I mean,
3 to 4 times
and I
a
relate
week
it
right
to
now.
baseball because we see a lot of baseball kids, but like I played soccer growing up.
Yeah.
Like I'll come in and be like,
yeah,
man, I play center back. I let 3 goals in this past week. Our team has a losing record. I've got a bunch of older guys who are relying on me to be better this season, to have a chance at winning a district championship, and I feel like crap. I don't even want to be around them. I'm too ashamed. I don't want to talk to them at school. I don't want to show up to practice. I also don't want to talk to anyone really about this because I feel like I'm the only one on the team who has these issues. So, I mean...
That's the only one paradox.
Yeah.
Yes. So, that's another thing, you know. So I always start out with the question of, well, when did you start feeling this way? Like, what happened for you to start feeling this way? And there's usually something. Maybe it's failed a test. Maybe it's got in a fight with a significant other. Got in a fight with parents. Got grounded. Got something. There's always something that sets off a cascade of they were distracted at the game, got in a little bit of a slump, and it perpetuated. Well, I say always, almost always.
Mm-hmm.
And then the blame and shame and guilt, the shame wizard and the anxiety mosquito and all those things start to come and hover around. And so we ask the questions of, well, why?
Yeah.
And why? And how? And what? And just keep trying to prompt them talking.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they just talk themselves out of the issue of that they're in. And which is really cool. I had one just last week that was like, I don't even know why I'm struggling with this now that we're talking. I don't know. How'd you figure out that I didn't really have anything to worry about? I didn't figure anything out. You just started talking.
Yeah. And
you
I
figured
just
it
sat
out.
there and listened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, I think one thing that's interesting too is when a kid comes in here, maybe they're struggling with some mental health things, maybe they're not, right? But I think asking questions of, how's life outside of sports? How's hanging out with friends in your free time?
mm-hmm.
How are things at home going? Because people come here because they're injured
Mm-hmm.
or wanting to get better at sports. And so obviously a lot of the conversation is about the injury or the sport. And sometimes it's good to look outside of that a bit as well, because I would say too, a lot of kids use sports as a coping mechanism for the different things they're struggling with, right? So if all I do is care about the sport they're playing or the injury they're dealing with right then and there, then sometimes you could be missing something that's really powerful. And would you say that poor mental health ties into somebody having potential issues with a long-term injury or pain or things like that?
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we talk about all the time the hijacked amygdala. And
can you explain that, please?
What is
the amygdala?
The amygdala. The amygdala. So it's the filter in the brain that determines good or bad, basically.
Yeah.
Good signal, bad signal. That's the simple version.
I like that.
And
I can get on board with
that. Yeah. Good, bad. And if it's already filtering everything around you as bad, because there are less than optimal circumstances at home, on the field, whatever else, or because there's pain, what have you, it can manifest in a lot of other aspects in life. And I can think of one of ours in particular who had a long-term issue. Long-term issue was resolved, doing great. All of a sudden, a family member who also has a lot of long-term health problems, who had been doing fantastic, had a little bit of a relapse in some of their health stuff, and started struggling with some mobility things again. And then that athlete's long-term pain and anger issues came right back.
Linked to what their family member was going through.
Nothing had changed. Nothing had changed in training. Nothing had changed on the field. Nothing else had changed. But within a week of the family member struggling, that individual was back in here with pain and problems. And it was just asking those questions of, well, what all has changed? What's going on? How are things at home? How are things? And well, this is going on again. And okay, all right. It's like, oh, I know this story. I've heard this before. And then it's interesting. I just treat the same way that we had before, and I feel great. Okay, cool. So we calmed it down, and I wouldn't say I really did all that much, but it decreased the threat level to that amygdala, changed the filter, essentially, and we're back to a good state with that individual. So it's really all about listening, and I mean, we could have a talk on different mental health aspects of sports every day. This month, if we really wanted to, but and I'm sure we'll have more. I don't know. Yeah. You're in charge. I'm just here.
I just have to get Brett on the couch to talk.
Yeah, really. That's
pretty much what goes on with Party Time Talks.
Yeah. He's like, sit down. We're talking. Okay.
Hey, I need you to talk about this.
Yeah. Talk about talking.
Yeah.
So I think on a subsequent talk we talk about some of the questions and strategies to dive into that a little bit further.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, that sounds good. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to end with a question, and the question is struggling with mental health normal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is normal.
I would say it is as normal as inhaling oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide at this point. It is normal. There will be ebbs and flows, and just like everything else, mental health is kind of like the paint wall at the hardware store, where there's a whole bunch of different colors of things. Like, there's a spectrum of mental health, and there are certainly some very, very intense mental illnesses, but there are also just some other mental health things that are going to ebb and flow. Like, sometimes the anxiety is going to be high, sometimes you're going to feel more sad, sometimes you're not. It's just, there's a lot of things that are up and down, and maybe that's a different shade of red or blue or green or orange. There's actually a whole subset of psychology that looks at how colors impact the psychosocial parts of the brain, but you could equate that spectrum to mental health, and so it's absolutely normal to have good days and bad days, and so please know that you're not alone, and you're not the only one going through whatever you're going through.
Yeah,
I promise.
Yeah.
I like, literally, that conversation you had that you brought up with the baseball example. There was one day, what was it? 2 weeks? I think it was 2 weeks ago, where at the end of the day, we had a conversation, and I had literally had 6 come sit down and say that exact thing. And I'm the only one struggling with this. I'm like, well, you're number 2 for the day. Oh, no, you're number 3 for the day. Oh, no, you're number 4 for the day. Actually, you're number 5 for the day. Oh, no, you're number 6 for the day. Like, in a row. And they were like, what? Really? Yeah, it's not abnormal. You're not weird. You're not broken. You're not, well, you might be weird, but we're all weird in our own way. But there's nothing wrong with struggling a little bit here and there. You just have to acknowledge it and then take the steps needed to work through it.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're an athlete watching this, and you feel like you're struggling with this, then go talk to someone about it. If you're a parent watching this whose kid comes here, don't be afraid to ask some of those questions, or just check in on your kids, see how they're doing, or just sit there and listen and just be there for them to process through things. If you're a coach watching this, understand that almost every single one of your players is going through some level of this, and understand that as you interact with those kids. So it takes everyone involved in everyone's story to understand the power and impact that mental health has. And I promise you that if you look into it and you pay attention to it, that things will be a lot better off for you.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you next time.